Colonel, I wonder if you know how concerned people outside Nigeria really are, including people in Britain, at the dangers of mass starvation.
This question of food or no food is just cockeyed. It's just a sort of cover plan. This country is independent and we're going to retain it that way, humanitarian reasons or not.
But we are certainly not going to end the war on account of people being starved. All is fair in war, so we are told, and that is the position.
The plight of the civilians is not the number one priority.
But number one priority is the unity of the country.
Have you ever watched a documentary and felt that some of the most important parts of the story were left unsaid? That was exactly how I felt after watching the BBC documentary Surviving Biafra, which premiered on BBC Africa's YouTube channel on the 1st of June 2026. Before I even pressed play, I had already seen heated debates online. Some people praised it, others accused it of bias. So I decided to watch it myself and judge it based on what was actually presented. And after watching it from beginning to the end, I came away with two conclusions. First, this documentary deserves credit for bringing the Biafran story to a global audience. But second, there are major historical gaps that cannot be ignored. Let's talk about it. One of the first misconceptions I want to address is the claim that this was a Yoruba documentary. That is simply not accurate. The documentary was directed by Meji Alabi Sama and Leke Alabi Isama, children of Brigadier General Godwin Alabi Sama, whose roots trace back to the Ukwane people in present-day Delta State, an indigenous Igbo-speaking community. So, from the beginning, reducing this documentary to ethnic politics misses the point. Another important observation is that the documentary was not created to absolve Britain of its complicity in the war. And that matters because Britain's involvement remains one of the most controversial aspects of the Nigerian genocidal war, also known as the Nigerian Civil War against the Igbo. The film focused primarily on personal experiences and memories of those who lived through the conflict, rather than a deep examination of internal politics and foreign interests. In fact, many of the veterans and survivors featured in the documentary were either Igbo or Biafran. People like Sasa Nwoke, Cornelia Ginekanwa, and Rose Hogan Bassi all brought perspectives from within Biafra itself. For that reason, I believe the producers made a sincere effort to tell the story. However, sincerity does not automatically mean completeness, and this is where my concern begins. Perhaps the biggest omission in the entire documentary is the Aburi Accord. For many historians and students of the war, Aburi is not a side story. It is central to understanding why the conflict began. In January 1967, military leaders from Nigeria and the Igbo extraction met in Aburi, Ghana, in an attempt to prevent the country from going into war. The agreements reached there were intended to address the growing crisis following the coups and counter-coups of 1966. Many supporters of Biafra argue that the failure to implement the Aburi Accord destroyed the last realistic opportunity for peace. Yet, despite showing footage of General Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu arriving for the Aburi meeting, the documentary never explained what Aburi was all about, what was agreed upon, or why it remained so significant. That is a major historical gap. Another issue is how the documentary presents the origin of the conflict. The January 1966 coup is heavily emphasized, almost as though it was primarily the cause of the war. But history is more complicated than that. Long before Biafra was declared in May 1967, there had already been ethnic tensions, political instability, and deadly attacks targeted against eastern Nigerians living in northern parts of Nigeria. Thousands fled back home to the eastern region amid fear and uncertainty. For many Easterners, for many Biafrans who are not even Igbo, especially the Igbo themselves, the declaration of Biafra was not viewed as an act of rebellion. It was viewed as an act of survival. Let us go our way and see if they can leave us alone. Whether one agrees with that interpretation or not, it remains a crucial part of understanding why millions supported the Biafran cause. The documentary touches on the sufferings but does not fully explore the events that convinced many people that remaining within Nigeria was no longer safe. Another area that deserved more attention was the international dimension of the war. By the late 1960s, around 1967 to 1970, Nigeria had become strategically important because of its oil resources. Questions surrounding foreign interests, military support, and geopolitical calculations continue to generate debate more than 50 years later. A deeper examination of those issues would have added valuable context to the documentary. Now, despite these criticisms, there are several things the documentary got right, and I think it is important to acknowledge them. One of the most powerful aspects of the documentary was its willingness to confront the human cost of the war. The documentary included references to starvation, civilian suffering, military actions that devastated communities across Biafra. It also highlighted statements from figures such as Colonel Benjamin Adekunle and Chief Obafemi Awolowo regarding wartime strategy and blockade that led to the deaths of millions of Biafran children. This, no doubt, remains some of the most debated aspects of the war. The documentary also showed evidence of bombings that affected civilian locations, including markets, hospitals, and refugee centers. Some of my fans here on Facebook and YouTube have accounts of their parents who died because they went to the markets. These scenes are a painful reminder that wars are rarely fought only on battlefields. Ordinary people often suffer the most. It is said that when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. And in that regard, the documentary succeeds. It forces viewers to confront the human tragedy behind the headlines and political arguments. That is why, despite my reservations, I believe Surviving Biafra is worth watching. No documentary can tell every part of a story as vast and complex as the Nigerian genocidal war against the Igbo people. But every documentary contributes to the conversation. This one opens the door. The next challenge is for more historians, filmmakers, researchers, and survivors to walk through that door and tell their parts of the story that remain untold, especially the voices of frontline Biafran veterans, civilian survivors, and communities whose experiences are still missing from the historical record. In the end, history belongs to those who preserve it, and whether you agree or disagree with this documentary. The most important thing is that the conversation continues. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Did BBC documentary tell the story fairly? What important events do you think were left out? Share your thoughts in the comment section. My thought: the case of Asaba massacre, the case of Ishagu massacre, and the case of several civilian annihilation of communities and pogroms in the north, even before 1960, should have been chronicled as grievances, not when Sas and Woke implied that we were living together as family. No, we were not living together as family. These are people of different ethnic heritages, mumbled together as a business interest for Britain. That was the foundation of what will later culminate into the Nigerian genocidal war against the Igbo. Share your thoughts in the comment section. This is Enuane Cultural Forum, where we promote the rich cultural heritage and history of the Igbo people. My name is Prince Onwadenem Ngozi Chukwuka Fortune. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next videos. If this is your first time of coming across our videos, hit the subscribe button and strike the notification bell so that when we put out videos, you will be among the first set of people to see the video. I'll see you in my subsequent videos. Bye.